So I'm obviously a good friend, right?
Like in general or to me?
Oh, both.
Yeah, you're a good friend.
Thank you. I appreciate
I won't
that.
even repeat.
No, because let's be sincere. Let's start off. It's Friday.
Really? Sincerity?
Yeah, let's have a sincerity day.
It's Saturdays are usually sincerity Saturdays for me. So like, I guess we'll try it on Friday.
Yeah, you just roll over and start spilling all your guts to your wife
Yeah.
as soon as the morning starts. She's just
That's
waiting
right.
for it. It was really hard. Thank God you were coming in here to talk about Shapiro, Atkins, Blue Jays offseason, Ben Ennis, and JD Bunkis good hour. I don't know. Sometimes I do radio sets. It's like, you should already know. I did everything in my power not to call you yesterday after the Shapiro media conference. I was boiling.
Didn't you text? You did text me, though,
I sent you one text, and you can't read it on air. You can't. I sent one text. Yeah. Right? Was it only one?
Well, I mean, you do the thing which is so annoying. You don't put all your thoughts in one. You do like 3 rapid fire things that are part of.
I hate when people write one big text block. I always tell my producers, like, sometimes they show me the texts that they'll send to guests, and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy didn't reply." I'm like, "Yeah, you wrote him a story." Like, of course,
Not that, but
when
like if
someone
it's
writes
all
me
in
a
the
story,
same-
I'm immediately like, "I'm not doing this. Like, this is not the format. Write me an email then if you want to write me an email."
This is no. There were two thoughts came back to back that should have been in the same text. But yeah, you're right.
Okay,
that's maybe.
Was I wrong about those texts?
One has to play out over the course of the next 2 hours. But yeah, the
I don't remember what I said. Yeah. I just remember one text that you can't read. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I won't. Yeah, anyway. All right. So
we'll see. I mean, you might be right, might be wrong.
Might be right, might be wrong. Yeah, could be. Come see, come saw. All right. So I didn't call you yesterday because it's pretty clear where I stand. And even with my tweets, I didn't see your tweets. I had to rein it in a little bit because okay. Here's
Don't give it away for free.
Let me just start with this, okay?
Okay.
So obviously, universally panned is, like, if we went to the Rotten Tomatoes score of Ross Atkins' media availability, 0%, right? We genuinely have, like, top critics. It's just like, go read Shai Daviti's article, right? It's not great.
Yeah.
It was not good. I actually found a little bit more. The people that I did speak to afterwards, just a couple, just, some feeler stuff.
After Saturday.
After Saturday, it was that was a disaster.
Yeah.
There was not one person going, Ross was in a tough spot there. It was
Galaxy Brain, that's why he's hired.
Yes. Buddy, yeah, I remember we did this on the phone. I said the Galaxy Brain thing was that he was just trying to take all the heat, but that it was all leading to a firing. That he went, I'll absorb all of the hatred so that the remaining people can live, He was Christ.
Right.
He died for their sins.
He's alive, though.
Yeah, he's alive. That's the problem. That would be a weird one with Christ if he would have just shown back up and been like, never mind. Although kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would know better than me. But
I should know better than you. Anyway, people seemed like Shapiro, to some, they didn't love it. It was just an extension of Atkins. To others, it seemed like it was steadying the ship a little bit. How did you interpret it?
Again, it's hard not to just get the bends comparing it to Saturday. It was amazing. It was like watching Barack Obama speak compared to
Saturday.
Compared to Saturday.
Compared it to Krusty, you're trash. But it was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
it.
And at least he did take accountability, right? Like he said the thing that I'm at the top of the
I want
pyramid.
this kind of accountability, though. I really want this kind of accountability where it's like, all you have to do is, and hey, this is how I was raised, was Catholic, is like, you could do whatever, and then you would go in a little box, and you would talk to a man behind in the same box, but a separate box, and you'd be like, I did this, and then he was like, it's good now, and you would say, nice, and that was the accountability.
That is nice.
It is kind of nice. This is the stuff that I want, is, hey, there's no retribution, you just have to say that you're accountable, and then they go, well, how? And you go, well, no further questions.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
But, okay, this year's disappointing. No kidding. Like, it was 89 wins, not enough. The way this team performed, not enough. The way they performed in the postseason, not enough. Would you have said the same last year, despite the way, like, the postseason ended poorly, but they scored a bunch of runs in that second game, and there's obviously
last year was way better.
Yeah, of course. So this is the first time we're really getting a big disappointment of a season, despite the fact, and this is ugly, and I might not have brought it up. I might have, if I was Mark Shapiro going into yesterday's press conference, said, I'm not going to talk in any way glowingly about what happened, but he did raise a point that is true. Like, in a disappointing slog of a horrible season, they did factually do better than a bunch of teams with high payrolls that disappointed even more than them, like the Mets, the Padres, the Yankees. They all expected to be in the playoffs. They were all out of the playoffs, and the Blue Jays won 89 games, which was way below expectations and not acceptable. But yeah, it could have gone off the rails even more than it did for this Blue Jays team. But it's only the first time in this era of, like, the era of Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, it's gone off the rails this spectacularly. Like 2021, they missed the playoffs by a single freaking game. Man, what a weirdo season where they're playing home games all over the place, and one game, and in a season in which people forget this because they focus on the individual seasons of Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray. Marcus Semien threw away out number 27
I
in
don't forget
Detroit.
it. I hate it. I don't bring it up
against
because it's not fair to Semien.
the Tigers. It was, as there's never been a more routine grounder to second base that would have ended the game, would have retroactively put the Blue Jays into the playoffs. But yeah, that season was not an unqualified success. It was a success. They won 91 games. They won 92 games last year and made the playoffs, and then had a big lead that they blew in game 2. This is the first time that we've really seen this level of failure. And it's you don't get to do it a bunch, but it is true that this is the first time it's really happened this badly.
Okay, so yesterday, basically, what you're saying to me is the way that the Shapiro media conference made you feel was, hey, you know what? It's not that bad.
It made me feel like the player evaluation stuff isn't that bad, but what might be more prevalent and impactful than I ever realized is the stuff that is not, maybe represents itself on the field in ways we don't understand, but the communication stuff, the relaying the game plan stuff to the manager and the manager relaying it to the player why did a team that had a bunch of guys that should have performed better underperform? Is it related to some weird culture thing within this team? And has that been building over the last couple of years? That part I don't feel great about.
Yeah, I don't either. In fact, I thought Shai was basically Shaquille O'Neal in his prime at that media conference. He just showed up and they were like, give the ball to Shaq and let him do his work. And I was like, no.
Yeah, who better understands what's gone on, not just this year, but like, and you saw it in the first article written about Charlo Montoyo and the reasons why things eventually started to fall apart there. This is not a, hey, brand new, wow, players are upset about the information they got in the last game of the season. No, this has apparently been building below the surface the last couple of years.
So Shaq Davidi takes the rock, and he just starts going to the rack, right? And then there was Smush Parker Damano that went with Marino. I was like, and the worst part was that the worst part was I actually liked the guts to stand up there and do those.
You gotta be prepared.
You can't do that. And then the worst, he did the thing to her where he went, sorry, what? Like made her repeat it. And then she double clutched and went Gabe, and I went, oh no, boy. This is bad. Now he's Smush Parker checking out of the game. Smush to the bench. Come to the bench, Smush. Get over here. Anyway, Shaq Davidi brings those points up. And it just reinforced my belief, which is I don't understand the Atkins keep. Like it's got to be one of the most perplexing front office decisions in my lifetime. Because here's the thing. Here's the facts. I don't know how I don't think there's one possible reason to keep Atkins. You can say that you basically just outlined body of work, right? Which was his famous.
Yes.
He had two famous lines
in the American League over the last 5 years or whatever. And
no, it's great.
Okay.
Here's the other part of it too.
And he also said continuity is a big point.
Buddy, you could have kept continuity. You're there, Mark. Your whole other guys are there.
James Click is already there.
James Click is there. You're keeping the manager. You had the continuity. So it's like there's just no reasonable explanation for it. The fan base seems like, if we're saying that one of the biggest reasons why you failed this year could be communication and the culture from the front office. But I'll say this, Mark Shapiro seems like a pretty decent communicator. And even when he's bringing things up, he's like, He does have a good little, that's a Ross question for the under the bus moments, which I do like, where he's like, that's for Ross. And then I think, oh, he's Reek. Ross Atkins is Reek, where it's just, he's there to be punished. He's just waiting. Oh, Reek, come out here to be punished, to be flogged publicly, because that he's the best. He's an incredible meat shield. Because if you have Ross Atkins in front of you, then the barbs are going to go there, and you're going
to being the meat shield to the meat shield that John Schneider is. That's a tough one.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like they basically, as an organization, have said John Schneider had the power to not do that, and yet everyone's like, it's Ross Atkins' fault. Incredible. He doesn't speak well with the public. He doesn't seem to understand or care at all about the fan base. I'll just say that. Like I don't feel it whatsoever. Like it just doesn't. As the kids say, it doesn't hit. It doesn't
kids
hit.
Say that? Oh.
Yeah, the kids say that. Joe, look at Joe nodding in approval, right?
Thumbs up. Okay.
And there's teams that you mention. There's a couple parts to this when they're like, we made the playoffs 3 out of 4 years. I'm like, you did. One of them was the pandemic year, which fine, okay. No, really, are you rolling your eyes at me or them?
No, I'm just rolling my eyes at having any thought about the 2020 season whatsoever.
Yeah, sure.
The Dodgers won a World Series,
Buddy,
the most choking dog franchise in pro sports.
But this is kind of what I'm saying. Is like they're like, we made the playoffs 3 out of 4 years, and I'm like, that's not really one. Can we just not count that for anyone? Fine.
I mean, yeah, Hyun-Jin Ryu looked pretty good in the first year as a Blue Jay.
Sure, he had a good that was great. You signed a guy that everyone thought was going to last a season, and he lasted a season, and it was a shortened season, but whatever. My point here is that if you look at the overall body of work, right? If we're going to do the body of work argument, yeah, you actually had something building in 2021 and 2022. And part of the reason that fans are so frustrated with 2023 is that they may have torched the team that everybody liked and thought was good and was doing something. And their entire premise as an organization seemed to be, from the front office standpoint anyways, that they were like, we need to get more mature. That, hey, these runs are nice, but we're going to be able to replicate these runs. Maybe not as many. We won't have maybe as special an offense, but we'll make up for the defense, and we'll make up for that with the culture shift. And then there was a disaster. None of it worked. And they're standing up there going, hey, what do you think he would like to have back more? The body of work comment, or the we made a mistake and then saying, actually, it wasn't a mistake? Or when he said the Moreno Lourdes trade, he said, quote, I still feel like that was a good trade, and it takes multiple years to assess a deal properly.
I debated whether I would bring this up with you today, like how mad I wanted to make you on a Friday. But, I mean, there are statistical you can back that argument with statistics. And the most obvious one is that, and let me preface this before you get too mad at me.
I'm not mad at you.
Don't get mad at me.
You're just you're hanging yourself with every Blue Jays fan that's looking for.
Don't get mad at me, okay?
I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you.
I think it's a bad trade. I wouldn't have done it. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I probably would have done it, but I certainly, in retrospect, think it's bad.
It's the worst trade of all of pro sports right now this calendar year. Tell me, if you can, if someone can find a worse trade in sports this year, you let me know. You can go back to last year. Rudy Gobert was worse. Rudy Gobert was much, much worse. Find me the trade that's this year worse.
I need to think about that one. You need to give me time to come up with one.
Take all the time you need, sweetheart. You won't find one.
Thank you for calling me sweetheart. Yeah. Fangraphs war?
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah.
Dalton Varsho had more than Gabriel Moreno, who was hurt at times this season, who's emerging as the player he might be in the postseason, hitting like half as many home runs as he hit throughout the course of a 162-game regular season, and he plays incredible defense. I wouldn't do it. I'm not saying that it's a good trade, but there is also the possibility that Varsho doesn't look like one of the worst qualified hitters in all of baseball next year, and he looks closer to the guy that hit 27 bombs and was actually slightly above league average offensively last year with Arizona, and he looks like the guy that he was on the road this year. I know that's not satisfying and not indicative of where my true feeling lies with the thing. But yeah, it feels pretty bad now because Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in the NLCS and the Blue Jays scored 1 run and lost both of their postseason games, winning 89 games.
Here's the thing about your Fangraphs war thing is that it's dead wrong because Dalton Varsho I was prepared for you to do this. Okay. I knew you would do this because I know you.
Okay. Using statistical evidence?
Dalton Varsho had a 2.1 Fangraphs war. You know who else did exactly that? Lourdes Gurriel Jr. So those two just scratch. They have the exact same. Yeah. Yes. Oh, right. Oh, that part. Oh, that part. And also, Gabriel Moreno missed 52 games this year. Hold on a second.
But he's a catcher. He's not going to play 162 games.
Hey, 100. Yeah, for sure. For sure, buddy.
Oh,
He missed 52 games.
per game?
No, yeah, I'm not even doing that to you because I'm just a good guy who wouldn't dominate you this way. I'm not Shaq Davidi, just coming in the paint and throwing down on you like this. You're not my Brad Miller, where I'm just like, get out of the way, Brad. The Arizona Diamondbacks were 23-28 without Gabriel Moreno last year. It's 52 games that he missed.
Yes.
5 games below 500.
600 winning percentage with him in the lineup, and like 40%.
61-50 when he was in the lineup, and then he also happened to submit a 1.7 WAR. Anyway,
Blue Jays also had a well above 500 record with Dalton Varsho in the lineup. It must be said.
Yeah, it must be said. It must be said. That's true. And everyone knows that they were like, they can't have this guy out of the lineup, except it was you who made the case that the ideal lineup did not include Dalton Varsho all year long. I rest my case. Anyway, my going back to the main point here was I don't understand why they didn't take the easy accountability button.
Would have been easy.
It would have been so easy just to simply say, we felt like those communication issues were a real thing that Shaq Davidi is referencing. And we want to try to improve this communication, and that means that we might need a better middleman here. We also feel like this was a team that was supposed to be winning the American League East, and then this season finished third. They don't have a playoff win, and that the quote-unquote body of work is actually fine, all due respect to Ross Atkins. But this is an organization that shouldn't be looking for fine. This was supposed to be a championship window. Thus, they're bringing a fresh voice into the room. And so if we're doing the body of work argument, you can kind of punch holes in some of the stuff. You can certainly really explain why fans are so frustrated. And I think that listen, man, this is one of my biggest criticisms of Shapiro yesterday. This guy is someone who really cares about fan entertainment, right? And he's trying to build a ballpark that suits fans. And he's done a great job with that. And I'm genuinely more excited next year about what the ballpark looks like than what the baseball team does as of today. That'll probably change.
Yeah.
But I go to a lot of games and
sure.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time seeing how this baseball team is going to be able to remodel themselves in a way where I'm feeling like a ton of confidence. The thing that they mentioned where they go, we got a bunch of players that had down statistical seasons. We got to figure out why that is. I'm like, well, I can tell you maybe the Springer one, but also if we're talking about positive regression, I think it's fair to bring up negative regression of the pitching staff, the thing that carried into the postseason. And for me, all I'm saying is right now, I'm skeptical. I'm not pessimistic. I'm skeptical of the baseball team being able to turn themselves around and be better than the Orioles next year, be better than the Rays next year, and be able to take a bigger step forward than the Yankees and the Red Sox will be able to. Like, I think that the Jays are in a very, very interesting but difficult position right now where they are in the American League East. And so my position is just kind of simply like, if you're into the fan entertainment product, why are you not better plugged in with the way fans are feeling right now, which is that they're furious. Fans are as mad as they have ever been. Like, and there's good reason for that too. Shapiro even acknowledged after the statement, Simmons, where he did this, he was like, into the statement.
Well, no, and that
he said that in his 30 years of baseball, one didn't feel as, what was it, trying? I can't remember the word that he used exactly.
Well, this is it. Specific. And that was part of the answer that he...
Grind. Yeah, he called it a grind.
And that was part of the answer in which he talked about, hey, it was a grind, and I take positives out of that because it was such a grindy grind, and we still got to 89 wins and made the playoffs, and a lot of teams who had grindy grind seasons.
And that really worked on you. You were like,
I just acknowledged it as fact, which is right? Yeah, it was a better season than the Yankees had. Spent a better season than the Padres had.
They celebrated their postseason. They got in. They had their locker room champagne celebration
after
because the Mariners lost. So
that was cool.
No, it was a great. They really
cool.
were. They really faced adversity
well.
Also
lost like all their games to end the season with the Diamondbacks. They lost like 4 straight to get into the playoffs.
All I'm saying is that the whole we were tough, and when we had our backs against it was like, you had the Ranger series and you got swept and you got the brakes beaten off.
I know, but you can make the argument that the toughest part of the season was, okay, you swept the Red Sox in a series that you probably shouldn't have because the Red Sox just threw it away after the sweep of the hands of the Rangers. But then you went into the Bronx and you went into Tampa and took 4 of 6, which was huge. That was essentially the season that taking 4 of 6 allowed you to stub your toe the way you did in the final homestand.
How'd they do that though?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
They beat the Red Sox by having the Red Sox.
No, the Red Sox series I put aside.
Okay, the Bronx series. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. We don't need to really
whatever. No,
hey,
what I want to talk about.
But we've always been a process versus results kind of show. You and I. Whenever we've done good hour, good show, whatever the hell we want to do, it's always been process versus results. And I think it's pretty clear that this Blue Jay season had a ton of bad process, top to bottom. And so this is kind of just where I'm staying. And I know I go all over the map, but the point I'm trying to illustrate here is pretty simple, which is, okay, so you've got communication issues from up top, right? Okay, so Shapiro's saying they fall on him. Where does Atkins play in this? Okay, we've gone over body of work. Well, yeah, you actually did build kind of a good baseball team, but then it seems like you removed a lot of the good pieces from that baseball team, including your entire farm system, to build what should be a finished product. And the finished product was what Shapiro referred to as a grind. And then you've got this fan base that is furious right now, and rightfully so, because they were sold this idea by many of us that the Blue Jays were going to be the team of the decade now. That this was going to be a very special time for Toronto Blue Jays fans. And that, hey, you know what? 93 is actually pretty far in the rear view. And even 2015, 2016 is pretty far in the rear view now. This time was supposed to be special. This is not the trailer, or that was the trailer. This is the movie, right? Everyone sat down for the movie. And then again, the Rotten Tomatoes score was a bit of a bust. And so from my criticism of Shapiro yesterday is that as someone who is, he says that he doesn't care about he didn't say he doesn't care about the fans, but he basically said, like, it's not about him. No. But he said, sorry, he doesn't care about the way people perceive him.
Yes.
Which I thought was a mature answer and a good hour. I'm not a good answer. I'm not trying to twist this in any way. But he is someone who is trying to renovate the ballpark and trying to get butts in the seats and already talking about attendance and talking about tickets and all of these different things, the fan experiences, all of this different stuff. And it's like, you know what the fan experience would have loved? Is, yeah, it's great. We got a subway station in the ballpark now. That's fun. We've got my favorite amenity ever, which is the stop and go, where I go in and I grab my tall Bud Light and I walk out and I go sit in the ball. I grab a bag of peanuts, and guess what? It works because I don't think about the peanuts being whatever, $15. I just think, look, there's a bag of peanuts. I can grab them and walk out and I don't have to tap a card. So it's free. It must be free. Don't check your credit card statement later. This would have really satiated a large part of the fan base to let them at least know, hey, we're listening. And we understand that accountability goes beyond just words, it's actions. And so for this front office to stand up there basically in unison and have a bunch of corporate speech and tell the fans, don't worry, we're smarter than you and the body of work and we're still diving into the numbers and I know you're frustrated, we feel your frustration, but nothing's going to change, I think is pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree that would have been the easy move and one I would have made to throw. But I don't think it was communicator.
I don't think it was just like, hey, this is the easy move. Like, I think it was also the smart move.
Sure, not knowing necessarily how, like, the inner working. Here's what I come down to.
Ross Atkins was a part of, like I said, the worst trade of the baseball season.
Yep.
And even if you look at the Teoscar trade, where Teoscar wasn't phenomenal this year, he didn't, destroy everyone. But if you want to do the Fangraphs war, it's like, he had a war over Swanson as well.
They needed exactly a guy like him who just swung for the fences, hit a bunch of home
Bingo.
runs.
It's just exactly that. They were trying to trade for him at the deadline. They couldn't get him. So it's like, it's a pretty clear admission of they screwed that one up too.
As much as Mark Shapiro talks about not being involved in the day-to-day baseball operations of this team, nothing's materially changing if he's still the president of this baseball team. So, yeah, you could have, again, easy thing would have been to fire Ross Atkins, who would have argued with the decision to fire Ross Atkins this week if he had decided after watching Saturday, even if Saturday was like he was going to hold on to Ross Atkins, but Saturday was so bad he had no choice but to fire Ross Atkins. Who would argue with that? I would maybe posit the idea that because it was the easy thing to do, that the hard thing to do of holding on to Ross Atkins maybe holds more sway in that front office among the employees that work underneath Mark Shapiro. And
the employees that they stated need to be more clear as to why they're in rooms and what their purpose actually seems to be, and then how the chains of communication seem to get lost between those guys and those employees.
And the players and the manager.
No, those guys. Okay, good.
I would also say,
hey, everyone, I'm really glad that those employees that were essentially also turfed under the bus yesterday, that they're going to be satiated by this decision.
I would also say that
not
as
the
long
fans,
as I would also say
the
that
execs, the middle managers, as we all love.
Who doesn't love a good middle manager?
Oh God, they're the best.
as long as Mark Shapiro is the president of this team, I do believe that it will operate in one way. And as much as he wants to wash his hands of the day-to-day baseball operations of the thing, like he put Ross Atkins in place. He came over from Cleveland because he wanted to be more involved in baseball operations. I think he is, for a lot of fans, separated from the criticism of the creation of this baseball team because of the involvement in the business side of things, but it's Mark Shapiro's baby here. Like this is, and if this continues, even if they had fired,
I don't think you're telling anybody anything they don't already know.
like even if it's James Click, the guy that was at the helm of the Houston Astros, by the way, taking over a pretty well ready-made machine when he arrived there. But hey, he was there for the championship, so he gets the plaudits for that. Even if it's James Click taking over for Ross Atkins, this is, I think we're now learning this is a Brendan Shanahan situation where it's Mark Shapiro.
But we know that in everything. The Toronto fans are not naive to this. They have Masai Ujiri, Brendan Shanahan,
then you're
and Mark
saying
Shapiro.
it's just for optics. It would have been better, and like sometimes you should just do things for the optics of it. Because if you're saying that Mark Shapiro is ultimately the decision maker, he's the culture setter.
Yeah.
That firing Ross Atkins actually isn't going to materially change anything other than optics.
No, I think it's both. I think that, like, we know that in the Kawhi Leonard trade, Bobby Webster was the brains behind the Danny Green edition. He was the one that helped shape that deal to ensure Danny Green came here. We know that Kyle Dubas has been someone who has, like, had his fingerprints obviously all over that roster despite Brendan Shanahan. Like, they've had disagreements, but you think that it was Brendan Shanahan that wanted to bring in all the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds? You think that he was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. I think that Ross Atkins has more power than people want to give him. Like, in fact, I actually would argue we give more of the this is Shapiro's baby than any other executive other than, I think, Masai Ujiri. Like, it's like Masai Ujiri and then Shapiro and then Shanahan in terms of the, like, hey, what are the levels of power here, right? Who's actually calling the shots? This baseball team took a massive step back, and the fan base is apoplectic, and two of the worst trades of, like, the two worst trades of their season happened under this guy's watch. And all I would say is that I'd like to think if that there's communication issues within the organization, if there were trade issues within the organization, and then, yes, public-facing issues, which is part of a general manager's job.
For sure.
That's why
it's amazing he's actually gotten better.
Dude.
Like, when he first started, he was worse than what we saw on Saturday.
This is my point, is that when he's going at the podium and saying, that's a question for Ross later, this is a question for Ross later, I'm thinking, so you're going to run this guy out here when every single time during the offseason you do, the fan base is going to be furious.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to put a face out there to an organization, to ticket buyers, to fans. You're going to put this guy out there that's going to be answering the questions
honestly,
in a corporate tone, in an what's the word? An unempathetic. I don't know what the hell how you were supposed to describe Ross Atkins. Robotic, whatever the hell it is. Unsympathetic, whatever the hell it is.
Should have rolled him out there again yesterday. It's like Ross. Before I speak, Ross has a few things he'd like to say. Sorry for everything I said on Saturday.
Buddy, I'm sure those two guys have a good working relationship.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ross Atkins brings a ton of value to a baseball team. I don't think that he's some idiot that's just there bumbling around.
Spanish too.
I'm sure he's a good baseball man. Okay, he didn't get to where he is without it.
Mm-hmm.
But the process has been flawed now for a couple of years. There are culture issues within the Blue Jays. The team took a massive step back. They made a bunch of bad trades, and then he is a public-facing person with a fan base that despises him right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is just simply an optics move. I think that there's some practicality to it as well. In fact, I'm having trouble seeing any reason, like, truly why Atkins would stay, other than kind of...
But you said a couple of years, like the process has been flawed for a couple of years. Like they did, like what was wrong with the process? Like here's the
the
number
process
one
internally because they're talking the Shaq Davidi stuff with the communication.
They still
within
won
the
92 games last year and should have forced a game 3 against the Mariners. And that was a good team last year. That was, I think, if you were gonna criticize last year's team, it would be the deadline that they had and not...
You mean just like this year where they didn't add a bat at the deadline?
Yeah, but they didn't add the swing and miss at the deadline. And,
that's two deadlines in a row where they didn't add the piece that was most glaring.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But this...
It's like...
Well, but they won 92 games a season ago,
Sure,
right?
They did. That was really nice. And that's why you expect... They said, what did Shapiro say at the podium? He said... Hey, we don't like to get trapped by a number, but we like to improve every single year. And instead of going to 93 wins, they went to 89.
They went backwards. I would say that, like, if you're just if you're making the strongest case against Ross Atkins is this one season, I would say. And is that fair?
Yeah, unquestionably.
Is that fair after one season when there had been,
But
like, we don't see a lot of linear progression
Yeah.
in sports. There had been actual linear progression for this Blue Jays team. To have one season where there's a downturn in progression and one season where you're like, oh, boy, that was ugly and a slog. After one season in which you still did make the playoffs.
But Ben,
I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but like the idea that it's like unfathomable that he would hold on to this guy.
But this is what I think is almost like, this is where it feels like we're twisting the narrative. Like that part of it. That's what upset me a little bit about the whole, like, hey, you should be happy that we've had a lot of bites of the at the apple. Like we've had a lot of good years. We've made the playoffs a bunch of years. It's like,
no, I hate that thinking too. That's the Jerry Dipoto.
Yes.
Like you need a Dave Dombrowski
that's
who's
what I'm
like,
saying.
fire me in 5 years after I've won a World Series.
That's what I'm saying here is, like, you can say, hey, it's been one down year. And you go, yeah, technically on paper, that's true. But the reality is that this was supposed to be the not end product, but the strongest possible version within the window of Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And now they've got 2 years left to make this happen. By the way, we'll get to the answer on those two guys later, because that was actually the sneaky part of the media conference that was like a little bit understated. To me, this was not just like one bad year where you look at it and go, hey, there was actually a bunch of injuries and we did make one bad trade, but don't worry, we've still got like a stocked farm system and, you know, all this money's coming off the books and there's a strong free agent class. We really feel like we're going to be able to bolster this group. It's like, no, they mentioned it. The free agent class is weak. They don't have a bunch of prospects to trade.
Yeah.
They actually have a ton of holes to fill.
Yeah.
They've got a story with Alek Manoah that has yet to be settled despite them saying he's excited. Like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's hear from him. Let's hear him come out,
I would
actually.
love that.
Let's have him have a podium and go, I'm so excited
happening?
for tomorrow or this next day and this next season.
Yeah, that has to happen at some point.
I'm sure it will. Well, someone's going to get the piece. Like Shaq or Ben, somebody's going to.
Ah, man, I'm going to call him Shaq next time I talk to him on the radio, aren't I?
Yeah, you can.
No, I'm saying like accidentally.
Oh,
now that
you're going to do it?
You've gaslit me into calling him Shaq.
I didn't gaslight you. I did a, what's it called? What's that movie that you think
Inception.
is good? Yeah, I Inceptioned you.
Incepted.
Yeah, that you think is great. You love all those movies. And
Christopher Nolan, I think he's
like
pretty
the
good
Batman
at making
ones.
movies.
Yeah, I think the Batman ones were good. All the rest, I'm like.
Tenet,
I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, we get it. No, we don't. No one got it.
I was like, get it?
No one gets it.
Even I don't get it.
See, that's all I ever wanted from you is you to admit that you don't get Tenet because there's nothing to get.
It's still cool as hell.
Okay.
It's still cool as hell.
All right, last one on this, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. And this is kind of like my statement here is I think that part of the fan frustration too is just like, this front office has always had a bit of a way of feeling like they're scolding you. Like, it's very corporate. It's like, we hear you, you know? It's like, I said it's like Exxon Valdez where they were like, we're sorry we spilled all that oil. Like, hey, that's on us. Like, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like, we're not really sure. But it's a bunch of corporate gobbledygook. They've got this like really disconnected. Yeah, they've got this really corporate way of kind of saying, you guys are irrational. We're going to be doing the deep dives. Let the
adults do it.
Yeah, you're too dumb to really understand this tone. And I think that drives people crazy too. And again, that's something that they claim that they've tried to work on the optics too. Shouldn't that matter? Like, remember, this was a thing where they were like, yeah, we're trying to work on better connecting with the fans. And you just said it, he's gotten better. And it's like, here we are going into year 9. And it's like, it's as bad as it's ever been. Congrats.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't there be some accountability for that? But what I want to ask you is like, it does feel like, especially the way things have gone in Toronto, I think that there's a bit of a fan trauma here that's like, intersecting for some people that are frustrated where they're looking at this and going, where does the fan accountability lie with some of these things? Because it's like Shanahan's had so many failures and like he's staying in there. And Masai's won a championship. He's a different story. There should be a longer leash with Masai Ujiri. But people are now actually starting to get to the point where they're like, hey, man, we'd like to, like, it's a little bit like the Belichick thing where the Patriots have lost forever now since no Tom Brady. And it's like Kawhi left and the Raptors have not really done anything since then. And people are starting to go, you know, it was nice to win, but also winning again would feel good.
Buddy.
And now here they are with this, and it doesn't really feel like change. If this change isn't going to happen now, then it's like, well, when is this going to happen? And then what? Ross is going to get fired next year? So what I wanted to ask you, the question is, do you think that this is riskier in any way for Atkins, or for Shapiro? Like, do you think that him keeping Atkins, because normally you say, you fire the GM and now the target's really on you. I think this is kind of a reverse one where it feels like it's a little bit riskier for Shapiro to keep Atkins because now it feels like they've made themselves a bit of a package deal.
Well, yeah, no, that's 100%. They're lumped in together, and I assume after the break you want to talk about the Bo and Vlad comments and the lack of extension talks seemingly upcoming this offseason, unless that was just like a negotiating tactic and hey, getting everybody off the scent so that they don't keep asking. But it does feel like he's going down with Ross Atkins, and that the timeline is like 2 more years, and that he knows that if they don't do something in the next 2 years, the whole thing might be over, and that. It doesn't matter that is the timeline. But back to like the complacency as far as the market is concerned with some less than stellar results recently and some long tenures. Like, isn't that like corporate ownership though? Like look at hey, the Patriots, and they have Robert Kraft, who's like 82 years old, and he 6 Super Bowls is nice. I want number 7 before I depart this mortal coil. Like, he has real personal equity in what happens next season and the year beyond that, and hopefully for him the year beyond that in New England. I think what we're talking about here, and yeah, Mark Shapiro, despite the fact he's been in baseball his entire pro life, also has that corporate mentality that, continuity is beneficial. Like, we think about things in a less emotional way when you're looking at the bottom line and sustainability and the Jerry DiPoto of it all. Like, that's kind of what you get with corporate ownership.
I think that
across all the pro sports here, and it's not just the one owned by Rogers, MLSE, same thing.
Yeah. I think that for this one, like, this just kind of, to me anyways, just speaks to the more modern age of sports. Where it's like, this is we've talked about like continuity as an advantage for so long because it didn't used to be, right? And a lot of these teams, and especially in this market, I think that people would look at it and go like, look at the turnover with the Raptors, look at the turnover with the Maple Leafs, like, look at the turnover even with the Blue Jays to a lesser extent, but to that all of a sudden we've zagged too hard the opposite direction.
Yes.
Where it's like, everything was always like, this has got to go, this has got to go, this has got to go. And now people went, well, Toronto's too reactionary. They don't let anybody settle in. They don't actually let anybody build a plan. And now we've gone completely opposite, where it's like, no, you got to keep the plan in place for essentially ever. And you're like, wait, isn't 8 years enough?
Well,
isn't 9 years enough? Like, what is the number before it starts to get into crazy land where we're just thinking, maybe time for a change. Like, we have presidents in the States for 4-year terms, and we get 8 for baseball teams. Otherwise, you're nuts.
Yeah, well, and to add more fuel to the fire of your argument is that, okay, making the playoffs used to be at least a deal in baseball, right? Like, holy cow.
I know, but now it's not anymore.
Everybody makes the playoffs.
Is it, buddy? Thank you. Yeah.
Like, everybody makes the playoffs.
Thank you.
Right? Like, and it allows the mentality of, hey, roll the dice and keep my job for as long as I can because it's risky to do what Dave Dombrowski does, right?
Yeah.
And it has a shelf life.
Duh.
And it's easier to do it when you might be headed to the Hall of Fame as an executive anyways, right? And you've done it in a couple of different places. But yeah, you know what's easier is like trying for, as Jerry DiPoto, because I keep bringing him up because his comments were so infuriating. Like, try to win 54% of your games for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And having a kick at the can, not being too bad that you're getting fired, but not being so all in that it can fall apart for you. And just having that sustainability of being in the playoffs. But in reality, the bar for any franchise in North American pro sports worth its salt, like making the playoffs in North American pro sports, which now includes baseball, that's the worst teams in the sport don't make the playoffs. You make the playoffs. Give me a break, man. The Blue Jays won 89 games.
Yeah. That's a perfect summary of that. Anyway, let's take a break. Let's come back. Would you trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to get Gabriel Moreno back? It's pretty uncharacteristic of an organization to let those guys walk into the second last year of their contracts without extensions.
Not totally unprecedented.
No.
Like the Red Sox did it going into the last year of Rafael Devers and still signed him. But I'm with you.
Yeah, they did. And maybe that'll happen with the Blue Jays. But yeah, the more common practice is to extend those players now.
Only gets more expensive.
I mean this sincerely. Is there anyone on the Blue Jays that you wouldn't trade 1-for-1 for Gabriel Moreno right now?
1-for-1.
Like 1-for-1, you got 2 years left of Bo. Would you trade him to get Gabriel Moreno back?
Probably not.
Okay.
Like I think Bo, because I would extend Bo. Bo would be the guy.
No. But you don't. You would try.
What?
No. I'm saying you try. You try to extend Bo.
Bo's a better player now, though. Like, so if I'm trying to win the World Series next year, Bo's the better player. So I would take.
So
Bo
you'd rather
Bichette.
have the 2 years of Bo and then
162 games.
Yeah, you'd rather have the 2 years of Bo and the mystery than Gabriel Moreno.
Yeah.
Who I would say that if we're
he's
just
still a mystery too, because he hit 7 home runs during the regular season. He's hit 3 in the playoffs, right? And he looks like an absolute menace at the plate. But yeah, he's also
the best defender at his position in all of baseball.
We knew that going into this too.
Yeah, I know.
But also, like,
I love the defense
Alejandro
matters team.
Kirk is also one of the best defenders at his position, right?
Yeah.
Like, it must be said. Now they're very different. They're very different people.
Yeah,
I would say in an overall sense. But yeah, the Blue Jays do have a great defender by all metrics
in
their organization. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe David Schneider.
Yeah, okay.
But that's it. No, Bo Bichette. Yeah, Vlad. Yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Listen, I agree with you.
This is not a surprise from me.
I agree with you about the Bo thing. If you told me, hey, you can only have one of these two players right now, I'd say I'd rather have Bo for these 2 years, knowing that he's locked into that salary that you're trying to win, and I'm trying to extend him and offer him a big bag of money over Gabriel Moreno, right? Like
Who's a free agent in 2029, Gabriel Moreno.
Well, that's the other part of it. Is that it's like if we're doing the years of control, if he's already this good, if he's already the best catcher at his position and someone who might already be an all-star and someone who's already proving that, like, here's what I believe with Gabriel Moreno is that he's already proven he's clutch. He has. Like, he's shown up in the postseason and he's been a monster. And it's clear that at his young age, the stage does not bother him whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. He already has those reps. And it's funny. You don't have to win a championship because Bryce Harper has never won a World Series. Already, he's established himself as a player that is pretty good this time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gabriel Moreno, like, he already has created that equity. It's like not going to be his fault that the Diamondbacks don't win a World Series under his tenure. By the way, Dalton Varsho, he's locked up until 2027 as well. Okay.
So yeah, 2 years less of control. Good to know. What have Vladdy and Bo played in playoff games combined now? 6? Yes, 6 playoff games.
0 for 6.
Yeah.
If you include the 2020.
Yeah, Gabriel Moreno, after his next game, which he's assured to play in, will have as many playoff games as those two.
He's performed better.
Well, yeah, but he's hit 3 more home runs than both of them combined.
He knows what it's like to walk off the field winning. A playoff game too. Yeah.
Anyway,
with that.
I just thought I should mention that. Like, I should just thought that in all of this, when we're discussing how bad was the Varsho trade, it's like, well, it's bad enough that if Shapiro's going to stand on the whole, I still think that's a good trade. It's like, okay, so then Dalton Varsho is the second most valuable asset to your baseball team. Well, no, it is, because that's the only way that you could possibly justify that. Like, forget.
No, I know.
Like, even last year's results, which we already know were 2 WAR. Like, you lost the trade by a WAR of 2, because again, they canceled out Moreno and Gurriel. I don't know why people think that's like a weird thing to bring up. It's like they were trying to win this season and they lost the trade this season.
That they could have used. They could have used.
Yeah. Like, no. That part of it matters, everybody. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter that Gurriel was not an all-star after the trade deadline. He was an all-star before, and he was worth the exact same amount of Fangraphs scores.
He's also come up with some big hits in the postseason himself.
Yeah, he has. My point is that even if we're just playing okay, fine, we're playing the Shapiro game of there's still time to judge this trade. It's like, cool. Part of what you're talking about is projections, right? You just said that these players fell short of your projection. So you're projecting outwardly. You still think it's a good trade, which means, and I know that this is like, he said it earlier. He's like, you can't say all the things, because if you say all the things, you betray player trust and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can't tell the way he truly feels about Dalton Varsho, which is, you're ruining my life.
Yeah, you think Mark Shapiro sees him wave at Yohan Duran's 103 3 times. He's like, well, that's
like,
what
next
we
year
signed
we'll
up
work
for.
on that. Yeah. That's an off-season thing that Varsho's going to go away and he'll work on that. The huge hole in the swing.
Hey, does he need laser eye surgery?
Yeah, no, pitching machine.
Ooh, yeah.
That was funny. Did you watch the Sonny Gray gets tattooed start?
Yeah.
They're like, these guys are sitting on the breaking ball, and like they have the pitching machine where you can replicate a pitcher almost exactly. And they must have practiced that. I was like, do the Jays have that machine? Are they not? Could they not afford that machine? They don't have one. They must not have one, because if they did have one, clearly they wouldn't be that bad. Maybe that's the deep dive. Is they're like, they heard about that pitching machine during the broadcast against the Twins, and they were like, we should get that pitching machine.
There's never been anything more predictable than that start from Sonny Gray. Because guess what? He wasn't
look that good.
Very good in game 2 against the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Traffic all around him.
You have the clip? Austin?
They had a bunch of singles.
Do you have the clip? Okay, no, he doesn't have it. Anyway, whatever. I don't have the clip. Don't guess 10 o'clock hour. Don't have the clip. Let me tell you this. He basically said we didn't lose that game. And he said because we didn't hit any runs and we made base running mistake.
Yes. Yeah, I wish there was a follow-up on the base running for this team.
Yeah, but he did say it that way, where it was like we lost the game. Not if he was power ranking why they lost that game.
Yeah,
he did not have the Barrios decision over Vladimir Guerrero Jr. making that mistake.
1 and 1A.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And then the second part was when they asked him about the window and re-signing those players.
Yep.
He basically gave an answer of,
we're about winning this year. Yeah. We're just thinking about the short term about winning next season.
Normally, when you have star players, you talk about, we will have those conversations. These guys are invaluable to our organization. They're the future of these are the faces.
Even if you don't necessarily believe that you're signing them to, like, same thing with the Ross Atkins thing. Even if it's not your fault, you usually in that situation say it is your fault.
Buddy, exactly. This is my point, is like, all of the stuff that we talked about today, it's all our own interpretation, and a lot of it is us projecting the feelings that we have about this baseball team. And getting back, let's be honest. Let's tell the truth, all of us that are frustrated, myself included. There was not going to be an answer yesterday that was going to satiate anybody. And even had they fired Ross Atkins, which I think that they should have for all of the reasons that I outlined, practical, public, optic, whatever. Ultimately, it wouldn't have resulted all that much in the wins and loss column next year, as much as like what the baseball moves are going to be and what involves those two guys. And so to be that non-committal at the end of the media conference, when it was sort of like everyone was running out of steam and they're like, taking the quotes of it was a mistake, it wasn't a mistake, hey, it was still a good baseball trade, Moreno, like all of the things that happened at that media conference. By the time we got to the end, I thought it was kind of like, oh, twist ending, twist, Shyamalan.
He Shyamalan'd us.
Yeah, he Shyamalan'd everybody with that.
Yeah, well, this is what I was saying before the break, that it, to me, indicated that, like, why would I lock these guys up long term? If we don't, like, do something in the playoffs, if we have more disappointment over the next 2 years, there was also a question about rebuild, too, and he's like, and someone asked him explicitly if he's going.
Well, not next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, okay, we got a 2-year window with those guys. We got a 2-year window to win, or else it's time to tear this thing down and start anew.
That's too far for me. I don't think it's that, but I will say that
I think it's on the table.
Yeah, there it is. That's the one where it's like, hey, if this doesn't work out and we know the window's shutting, we've already been a group that decided the 2016 window was shut. Or sorry, once that was done, 2017, there was like the fake competitive year where they were like, no, Kendrys will be just as good and you'll win. We'll win. And they were like, aha, it was major leagues. It was Major Leagues 101, which is, we're trying to win. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I just think of Kevin James, the meme. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you can't avoid on Twitter now.
No, I would have to say that felt to me a little bit like if I'm doing, can we just say, do a quick take safe space. I actually think that was an indicator that they're going to shop both of those guys this offseason and see what they could get back for either of them. Right. And I think it's less likely that Bo gets traded, but let's not forget that there were some people talking about Bo trades last offseason, that they were like maybe going to try to get in on some of the shortstops that were in the market. Now there's not those guys there anymore, and you can't replace Bo, and he's clearly the better player, but I just wonder if, because they can't trade Springer, right? Like Springer's completely immovable, and there's nothing going to happen there.
He's got to hope that there's not regression there.
You hope that he's not just completely done.
No, I mean, you mentioned it, the base running thing. I don't even need to take safe space for this. I think this is...
the Vladdy.
I think this is pretty clear, not even reading between the lines, but Mark Shapiro sees what you see. Mm-hmm. Mark Shapiro, I don't think is a big fan of the way things have gone with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., not just from a production standpoint, but who the player has become. And like that includes the base running, the attention to detail, all of it. I think Mark Shapiro is looking for an off-ramp for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and this is the offseason that he's going to do his darndest to take that off-ramp.
Hey, brother, I think that this might be the biggest thing that actually came out of yesterday.
Yeah.
is it like him going, I don't blame the manager as much. I don't blame the decision making as much as I blame that base running mistake that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made. And for him to bring it up in that moment, like this is a calm, cool, calculated guy. Like,
but if I was as furious as I was watching the tying run get picked off second base for the first time in franchise history in a playoff game with the best player at the plate in a full count in the fifth inning of a must-win playoff game, imagine how the president of the team felt.
Do you know how else he probably felt? He went, okay, so we made a lot of the decisions around this offseason to get better defensively, for sure, and to get more mature. But what was the reason that they tried to move off of some of these guys to get more mature? Is they felt like getting rid of Home Run Jacket and Charlie Montoyo and Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
More serious
and
Vlad.
It was all geared towards making sure that they could like stress test Vladdy. And I don't think it's fair to like that. Like, I'm not trying to. I think Vladdy was the like if we're going through the major reasons why the Blue Jays were a disappointment this year, like he's probably number one. It's like the Moreno trade is huge. Like it's a massive trade. It has huge implications. That's the front office's one. But the one that they don't bear fault in as much is Vladdy. He had a. Let's just say it. By his standards, it was a disaster. I'm sorry. Like, I'm tired of the whole, like, I'm tired of the whole, like, well, he's actually he's still a good hitter.
No, but I don't think anybody's making that argument anymore.
So, or he's young, or this. It's just like, fine. They've tried to stress test it by removing his friends and trying to put him in a more mature atmosphere and to try to, like, get the best out of him. And now they've tried it a few different ways since that MVP season, and this one really fell short. And I do wonder if the base running mistake, when they're looking at this, like, hey, how does the team get better on the base pass? They're like, well, maybe we're going to get rid of one of the criminal offenders of this team and, like, change the culture with this.
Yeah. It has to be. And it's a hard trade to make work. And my favorite is the Pete Alonso trade.
I know. I brought that up to BNS. He was like, it's a horrible trade. And I was like, it kind of is, but.
I was like, yeah, how dare you, BNS? You used to work for MLB Trade Rumors. Come on, entertain that just a little bit. But yeah, no, I think we're going to hear, maybe we won't hear about the rumors. Maybe they'll put the cone of silence on it. But I'd be flabbergasted if they weren't aggressively pursuing a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. trade.
I ran out of time with you.
Dang it.
Yeah. But
I could do another 8 hours.
No, I know you could. But I had two other topics for you, which is like how you're feeling about this rumored Seinfeld reunion. And
I
my
didn't
other
see that.
Yeah, Jobo showed it to me today. It's like he wants to bring it back, and I was like, ooh, that's a little,
No, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But two, and I want you to sit on this one. I want you to think about this one because maybe I'll just do this with you next week on Good Hour. Has any baseball player made you feel more than Bryce Harper has in the last decade that isn't on your baseball team?
I want you to think about that. A team like that Phillies team, my God.
I know.
And then conversally, I like to Alex Anthopoulos, sort of half-heartedly root for the Braves, like they're out all the way out.
Yeah.
After the Orlando Arcia stuff and the Travis d'Arnaud stuff and the embarrassment of that team after the game. And Acuna
do you see on the back of their T-shirts they said they weren't supposed to hear it? Oh my God, they double dunked. Anyways, Ben Ennis, the Fan Morning Show. You guys are killing it so far.
Thanks, buddy. You
always
kill it.
This was a very good hour.
Very good hour?
Yeah, this was a very good hour.
All
I'm going to put this one down as a very good hour. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. I'll see you next week.